Mike looked at Flora the way he had seen men look at women on TV. "Flora, please," he said softly. "Let's do that thing again, the one the man and woman did in the video. I like it, it's so nice." Tears welled up in Flora's eyes as she shook her head. "No, Mike," she whispered. "I won't do that again. It hurts so much. I never want to do it again." How did these children reach such a point? Why is Mike asking Flora to do something so unthinkable? And where are their parents in all of this? Stay with me as we uncover the heartbreaking story of Mike and Flora. 9-year-old Mike and his 7-year-old sister Flora were often left alone at home. Their parents, Mr. and Mrs. Jude, were hard-working professionals. Mike and Flora had grown used to being by themselves, though it was far from something they enjoyed. They tried to pass the time with board games or drawing, but the TV always seemed to draw them in. One particular evening, Mike was watching a late-night program filled with bright lights, loud music, and adults laughing and talking in a way that felt strange to him. The scenes changed quickly, bursting with excitement and mystery. Curious, he called out to Flora, who was in the other room. "Flora, come here. Look at this," Mike's voice carried down the hallway. Intrigued, Flora hurried into the living room and sat beside her brother. Together, they stared wide-eyed at the screen, captivated by the flashing colors and fast-paced music. They didn't understand much of what was being said, but it seemed entertaining, so they kept watching. "Why are they doing that?" Flora asked innocently, her forehead wrinkling in confusion. She didn't fully grasp the content, but sensed it was different from the shows they usually watched. "I don't know," Mike replied. "Maybe it's something fun that grown-ups do." The scenes continued, leaving their young minds both puzzled and curious. What they didn't realize was that the images flashing before them weren't meant for children's eyes. They were. Unknowingly, they were stepping into a world far beyond their understanding. Days had passed since Mike and Flora watched that strange TV show, but the images lingered in their minds. The curiosity sparked within them grew, becoming something they couldn't ignore. One afternoon, while their parents were at work, Mike turned to Flora, his eyes bright with excitement. "Flora, do you remember that thing we saw on TV?" he asked quietly, a hint of mischief in his tone. Flora's face stiffened as the unsettling images resurfaced in her mind. "I don't know, Mike," she replied hesitantly. It didn't feel right. But Mike had already decided. "Let's try it," he said with a playful grin, unaware of the gravity of his words. To him, it seemed like just another harmless adventure. Flora frowned, her discomfort growing. "No, Mike. Mom said we shouldn't copy things we see on TV," she said softly. Mike, oblivious to the implications, persisted. "Come on, Flora. It's just pretend. No one will know." Flora hesitated, torn and uncertain. Mike added, "Remember when you went outside that day, even though Mom and Dad told us not to? No one found out. But if you don't do this with me, I'll tell Dad." Panic set in for Flora, making her feel cornered. Neither of them fully grasped the consequences of what they were about to do, but Mike's words left her feeling trapped. Finally, she nodded, her voice trembling. "Okay, Mike. Mike, let's do it." In that moment, the curiosity that had always driven Mike and Flora to explore together took a dark turn. Unlike the sweet adventures they usually shared, this time felt different. As they entered the room and lay on the bed, Flora felt a sharp pain. She screamed, running into the living room. "This is strange, Mike. I never want to do this again," she cried, clutching her chest as tears streamed down her face. The pain was unbearable, far worse than she had imagined. Mike, however, didn't understand why Flora was so upset. He still wanted to continue, unaware of just how terribly wrong everything had become. Flora's heart raced with fear, and she instinctively knew that this wasn't right. This wasn't like the harmless adventures they used to have. This time, there was no laughter, no joy, only pain and deep regret. As days passed, Flora's discomfort grew. She noticed changes in Mike's behavior, and it frightened her. He had become more stubborn, more insistent, and she could feel he was no longer the playful brother she once knew. The innocence that had once defined their bond was fading, leaving behind something darker and far more unsettling. Their bond seemed to have slipped away. One afternoon, when their mother came home briefly to grab some documents, Flora felt an overwhelming urge to speak up. She couldn't bear the silence any longer. "Mom, can I talk to you?" she asked hesitantly, her voice trembling as she approached Mrs. Jude. Her mother, distracted by phone calls and her never-ending to-do list, barely looked up. "Not now, Flora. I'm in a hurry," she replied, juggling her phone and glancing at her watch. Flora stood there for a moment, her heart sinking. Mrs. Jude sighed, clearly stressed. "Later, sweetheart. Be a good girl, all right," she added, brushing off Flora's concern as she stepped out the door again. Flora's small voice faded into the background, drowned out by the chaos of her mother's busy life. She retreated to her room, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her heart ached, but she felt invisible in a house that was supposed to be her safe haven. All she wanted was for her mother to listen, to understand the weight of her pain. One afternoon, after yet another attempt by Mike to pressure Flora into imitating an inappropriate scene from the show they had watched, she couldn't take it anymore. Overwhelmed, she ran out of the house, her small body trembling with fear and desperation. Confused and unsure where to go, Flora found herself standing at the door of their kind neighbor, Aunt Felicia. "What's wrong, Flora?" Aunt Felicia asked, kneeling down to meet her at eye level. Flora couldn't hold it in any longer. She burst into uncontrollable tears, sobbing as she poured out everything, Mike's request, the growing fear inside her, and the deep discomfort she felt. Aunt Felicia wrapped Flora in a warm, reassuring hug. "You did the right thing by telling me," she said gently, her voice calm and soothing. "You don't have to face this alone. I'm here for you, and we'll figure this out together." Flora clung to Aunt Felicia tightly, feeling a glimmer of relief for the first time in days. The weight pressing on her chest seemed to lighten just a bit. "I'm scared," Flora whispered. "What should I do, Auntie?" Aunt Felicia gave her a reassuring smile and wiped away her tears. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll help you. You're safe now." When Aunt Felicia brought the matter to Flora's parents, they were shocked. At first, they went into defense mode. "Mike wouldn't do something like that," Mr. Jude said firmly, disbelief evident in his voice. "Maybe they misunderstood what they saw," Mrs. Jude added, trying to downplay the seriousness of the situation. But Aunt Felicia stood her ground. "Children act out what they see," she said firmly. "This needs to be addressed before it escalates further. They see and interpret what they're exposed to, especially when given material beyond their understanding," Aunt Felicia said firmly. "You've been so focused on work that you've overlooked what your children are watching. This is a wake-up call," she added, her voice steady and filled with concern. Mr. and Mrs. Jude fell silent, realizing that their inattentiveness, though unintentional, had left their children vulnerable to risks they hadn't considered. Accepting this was difficult, but they knew they had to make changes. Mr. Jude took immediate steps to address the issue. He began monitoring the children's screen time, ensuring they only watched age-appropriate shows and participated in suitable activities. The Judes also encouraged open conversations, inviting Mike and Flora to share and process anything they saw on TV or experienced, helping them better understand their emotions. Recognizing the need for professional guidance, they arranged for Mike and Flora to meet with a counselor. They knew their children needed support to process and recover from what had happened. The family also prioritized spending quality time together. In the evenings, Mrs. Jude would read bedtime stories to Mike and Flora, while Mr. Jude engaged them in fun games. Gradually, the siblings began to smile and laugh again, rediscovering their bond through positive and healthy activities. It was a journey, but the Judes were determined to create a safe, nurturing environment where their children could thrive, free from the harm of inappropriate content. Months passed, and the Judes transformed into a more attentive and present family. Mrs. Jude made the deliberate choice to reduce her work hours, prioritizing her family over her career. Mr. Jude, who had always been consumed by work, started dedicating his weekends to spending quality time with Mike and Flora. Under this newfound attention and love, the children began to flourish. Mike and Flora felt more confident, knowing they could approach their parents about anything troubling them. The painful silence that had once filled their home was replaced by laughter, love, and the warmth of a family learning to truly connect. One evening, as they all sat together playing a board game, Flora looked up at her parents with a thoughtful expression. "Thank you for listening to me now," she said softly. Her words, though simple, carried profound meaning. Mrs. Jude's eyes filled with tears, and in that moment, the family understood the true value of their relationship. The greatest gift they could offer one another was their attention, love, and presence in each other's lives. This marked a new chapter for the Judes, one built on stronger bonds and a deeper understanding of what truly mattered. This is the conclusion of their story. It reminds us that the most precious gift we can give our children is our time, attention, and love. Children need to feel heard and understood, especially when they are trying to express something important. Change begins by listening to their voices. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts, share your experiences or reflections in the comments below. Have you ever felt that your voice wasn't heard during childhood? Until next time, take care and goodbye. Note, remember, every child's voice matters. Listening and understanding can make all the difference.